So for the second day in a row, we were being tweeted to the near nonstop coverage of Ilhan Omar's quote-unquote anti-Semitic tweets. Now, anyone who's read the tweet in question, which just says all about the Benjamins, in reference to some comment that Glenn Greenwald, I believe, had made about how strange it is that every single member of Congress seems to fall in line and vote pro-Israel on questions that really would normally have, you would expect some sort of variation in congressional opinion like you get on literally every other issue. And this is merely stating the obvious. Lobbyists lobby. Lobbyists pay money in order to get congressmen to vote a certain way. And AIPAC is no different from this. She even clarified that she was talking about AIPAC when somebody asked her, and who would that be? Trying to get her to say the Jews, because, obviously you get elected to Congress by being really stupid and saying dumb shit in public. No, not really. Although, things do sometimes tend to point that way. However, the fact that she was viciously attacked for stating this really obvious statement, about which she's stated sort of analogous things about other lobbies as well, such as Saudi Arabia, which of course Breitbart will never point out because their whole thing is that, oh, she's a Muslim, therefore she hates Jews, therefore we must crucify her and feed her to the lions. Not quite. She's called out Saudi Arabia for unduly influencing government. She's also called out other lobbies. Lobbies do have too much power in Washington. To say this much is generally not considered a very controversial statement. Money in politics is a scourge of our democracy, and really the power should be curtailed. And that's power across all lobbies, including, but not limited to, the Israeli lobby. So the fact that they jumped down her throat for this statement, as opposed to her other, now of course all the media is saying, oh, she has a history of anti-Semitic tweets. It isn't just this one. They're backpedaling furiously because they realize they overplayed their hand. The thing is that it's really not a statement that anybody can argue with. Does AIPAC have too much power over Congress? Of course. They vote in lockstep every time there's an Israel vote comes up. The only reason they didn't vote for this last one, this one to basically not quite criminalize, but to allow the states to take action to criminalize the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, the only reason that they didn't vote in lockstep on that one is because it's blatantly unconstitutional. They voted completely in favor of this Anti-Semitism Awareness Act that was passed at the beginning of the year in the House of Representatives. I think even Ilhan Omar voted for that one. And it's because you can't vote against Israel unless you want them to fund your opponent with huge sums of money. Cynthia McKinney found this out the hard way, rather. And she has talked about it openly, and I recommend you watch her video if you think that I'm making this up, because this is established fact. They even say on their website that they expect every member of Congress to interact with them in some way. I believe take a trip to Israel or otherwise engage with the Israeli community or the pro-Israel community in certain ways. I will also link to that because I don't remember the details off the top of my head. But they're very open about their influence in Congress. They're proud of it. They boast about it. And in general, I mean, if a community is boasting about its influence over Congress people, it's pretty safe to repeat what they've said. I mean, this is not anything terribly controversial. And in fact, this whole idea that it's an anti-Semitic trope that the Israeli lobby controls Congress or something, they talk about this themselves publicly. And the thing is, they realized they overplayed their hand relatively soon, I think, because while she was forced to apologize because Nancy Pelosi and the other congressional leadership jumped down her throat and basically, I would imagine, although this is not public knowledge, they probably threatened to strip her of her committee memberships. That wouldn't surprise me. She did issue an apology, although the pro-Israel community was not content with the abject groveling contained therein, and basically said, oh, well, this is not enough. You have to prostrate yourself before us and just make a complete show of utter abject groveling. And I mean, the responses were pretty funny. The tweets that Ilhan Omar posted were replete with Jewish, intelligent, sane people speaking up in her defense, saying, this wasn't anti-Semitic to say this, and it's actually more anti-Semitic to identify all Jews with AIPAC, because AIPAC is engaged in some very objectionable activities. I mean, the FBI caught AIPAC collecting documents, collecting secret documents on activists that it found were threatening, and even members of government, collecting secret data on people who really shouldn't have access to. And this was many, many years ago, too, so who even knows what they're doing now? I mean, we can imagine, like, that article that recently came out in the New Yorker about quote-unquote private Mossads. You know, if the private Mossads are doing all this shit, AIPAC has got some, like, actual Mossads doing just that much shit and more. However, I'm going a little off track here, descending into the realm of anti-Semitic tropes, I suppose. Yeah, you can't say what's public knowledge because we all know these things. We just aren't allowed to talk about them. I mean, that's a really stupid way to operate. If you don't want people to call you on your bullshit, don't do it. It's that simple. But I guess that's too much like of a revolutionary idea. However, so these tweets that really were very mild-mannered and totally not objectionable at all. And again, if you would replace the word, actually she didn't even say anything about Jewish or in that tweet at all. So you would replace, I don't even know how you would replace. It's a little ridiculous. But yeah, it's just to look at the media coverage still, even today. It's yeah, it's a history of anti-Semitic tweets because obviously those particular tweets were pretty mild-mannered and like there's nothing really objectionable in them. However, she did issue this apology because Nancy Pelosi and company decided that, it doesn't look at all strange to just be throwing one of your own under the bus in order to assuage the butthurt of a foreign power. That's not weird at all. That's not like acting like you're a wholly owned subsidiary of another foreign government at all. Like, it's ridiculous because by attacking her in this way, they're basically proving her point beyond her wildest hopes of even being proven right. To anybody who has a problem with what she said, by the way, I suggest you watch the documentary The Lobby. It was supposed to be released on Al Jazeera, but it was killed at the last minute for reasons which will be pretty obvious once you see it. I will link to that in the comments of this video as well, because, I mean, I thought I knew everything about the Israeli lobby. I didn't, and neither do you, so watch it. Anyway, to move on to the wider point of this video, which I'm titling The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. However, just get this disclaimer out of the way. I don't mean ugly physically, and this is not an attack on anybody's appearance. I mean ugly psychologically, in their actions, and just in general, ugly. There were 3 congresswomen whose entry into Congress at the beginning of the year was basically heralded, surrounded with a media circus, and talked about quite a bit. More than the usual entry of a person into Congress. Quite a bit more. In fact, one of them, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, has even been the subject of her own documentary. The other 2 would be Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, who are 2 Muslim congresswomen. Ilhan Omar is from Somalia, and Rashida Tlaib is of Palestinian ancestry. These 2 were not nearly as talked about as Ocasio-Cortez, and there's a reason why she was the one to become the media darling. However, we will get there. First, I would say of the 3, the good would be Ilhan Omar, because she's proven herself to be the real deal. She's willing to state the obvious that you're not supposed to state, and doesn't seem to be backing down. While she did issue the apology, she held that her main point was correct, and I appreciate her courage for being willing to stand for that. I hope that she maintains it. I realize that 4 years in Congress is enough to take the spine out of basically anybody, but she's still new to the game and seems to be willing to fight the hard fights. So, moving on, we have the bad, and that's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Now, she comes from my state, New York. She comes from my city, New York. And I really wanted to think that she was the real deal because, a democratic socialist coming into Congress and telling people that, the 1% is responsible for all of the crimes the 1% is responsible for. Maybe we should hold them to account. Maybe we shouldn't let them get away without paying their taxes, etc., etc. Even coming out against war like she did during the election. However, she's backed away from a lot of the less laudable positions. She's backed away from a lot of the more interesting positions she held during the election, such as speaking out against war. She hasn't really said much of anything about war since being elected, more about not even stepping forward to praise Trump for withdrawing from Syria, although he doesn't look like he's going to do that anymore. Had anybody backed him up, perhaps he still would be doing that. But instead, everybody decided to jump down his throat and just cheer on the war machine because, Trump. Really? Really, guys? Well, why don't you speak out against his incursion into Venezuela, which is going to happen any day now? I mean, that if you want to speak out against Trump, there's something to talk about. No, none of that. None of that. But anyway, back to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Now, I believe, and have seen no reason to doubt this, that she was sent in to purposefully poison the well for any sort of democratic socialist ideas, as far as, making the wealthy pay their fair share of taxes, maybe not giving huge tax giveaways to companies like Amazon who want to move their headquarters to New York, things like that. Just a living wage, really universal health care, all these things that the majority of American voters actually have no problem with or even support vocally. However, we are told that these things are just too much to ask for, and that expecting the Democratic Party to include them in their platforms is unrealistic and naive and idealistic. However, of course, this is not the case. I mean, these are things that most of the Western world, the quote-unquote civilized world, has had for decades, and really should have here. If we weren't spending more than half of our discretionary budget on the military-industrial complex, we would actually be able to have these things, and then some. There would be no homelessness. People would have health care. There would be probably free college as well. I think you could afford all three of those things if you just shut down the war machine. However, that will never happen because the war machine, like AIPAC, pays the bills for Congress. I mean, it doesn't, getting elected ain't cheap these days, especially, the more money that goes into Congress, the more money you need to run for Congress, and it's a vicious cycle, and unfortunately the worst of it was unleashed with Citizens United, but it was a problem even before that. However, the Citizens United just kicked things into high gear, and actually I think that was one of the things that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez ran on, sort of downsizing the influence of Citizens United, or perhaps even rolling it back. I do recall she mentioned that a little bit, also mentioned something about, criticizing Israel's treatment of the Palestinians. However, this was my first sort of solid indicator that she was not the real thing. She had an interview while she was before she was elected, but I think she had just won the primary, but she hadn't been elected yet. She mentioned some comment about the Israeli occupation of the West Bank. Now, this is a really uncontroversial way of describing what has been a geographic and political fact for many, many years. Israel is occupying building settlements illegally in the West Bank, which is legally and internationally recognized as Palestinian territory. Has been since, 1967 or something. And the MSNBC interviewer basically took issue with her characterization of the land as occupied territory. It's basically, what did you just say? And she said, tee, I actually don't know anything about politics or geography or hee. Really? I mean, you're a college-educated woman. You are holding political office, or at least aspiring to do so. I would think that, it's a big deal internationally, this treatment of the Palestinian people that Israel is perpetrating. There's even an international movement to combat it. So it's called boycott, divestment, and sanctions. And more mainstream media can't even speak its name because they realize how effective it actually is. I mean, especially on college campuses, get kids while they're young and idealistic and actually don't think that it's okay to slaughter civilians hundreds at a time and shoot women with children and shoot journalists and shoot medics and just, actually have, I realize this has nothing to do with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, but I never tire of mentioning this fact because I think it really sums up the sociopathy of the Israeli government more than anything else. That t-shirt that the IDF loves to wear with the sniper's scope, and there's a silhouette of a pregnant woman, and the scope is surrounding her, and it says 1 shot, 2 kills. Really? This is the country we have a special relationship with, ladies and gentlemen. But Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. No. And she makes too many dumb mistakes. I don't believe that she's that stupid. I think that she's been sent in to sabotage this idea of democratic socialism, this idea of just, a kinder, gentler capitalism. Either no one is saying we have to go full-bore socialist, but Europe has universal health care, pretty much every country, I believe, and free or at least cheap college, and they don't have this problem of homelessness. You can't walk down the street in New York without encountering just dozens of homeless people everywhere. And obviously, this is not their fault. People lose their homes. A lot of people lost their homes in 2008, and a lot of them have not recovered. This idea of this miraculous recovery that Donald Trump has been touting since he was elected. Yes, the stock market went up a lot. Do you know how much of the American population owns stock? I'll give you a hint. Not very many. So this, yeah, I'm sorry that this, yes, was an economic recovery for some people, for a very small percentage of the people. The banks are doing great again. They're paying themselves bigger bonuses than ever. Health insurance companies are doing fabulously under Obamacare. And the average guy can't muster $600 for an unexpected expense. So, yeah, we need these ideas more now than ever. And Alexandria Cortez, a lot of people put their hope into her because she's young and seems very energetic, bright, idealistic kid. And unfortunately, I don't think that she's what everybody wants her to be. And just that ridiculous New Deal thing that was leaked that she claims now was not from her office. This is from her website, like this stuff about how we're going to replace all air travel with high-speed trains. Dude, like, you're not even, just, no. And people realize that's ridiculous, and people are going to now see anyone else who comes forward with democratic socialism as being ridiculous. I do not like this idea that she's going to be the one who has the hopes of everybody invested in her, and then she just crashes and burns. I'm seeing crashing and burning happening, and I don't think that this is good. I don't like where this is going. So I would think that people should be very careful before they place their hopes and dreams in somebody like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I hope I'm wrong. Really, I do. I don't take any pleasure in seeing fake people get exposed as fake. But I also don't take any pleasure in seeing people get duped. And I think people are getting duped. So, yeah. And then the ugly. Now, like I said, I'm not talking about physical appearance here at all. Rashida Tlaib is a presentable, normal-looking human being. I do think that she was also sent in, or at least is being allowed to behave in this sort of uncouth, like, way in order to give Palestinians a bad name. I think that it's sort of an attempt to maybe drive Americans, liberals, back into the arms of the Israelis because, or at least American liberal intelligentsia. When she came out with that, we're going to impeach the motherfucker thing, and people, Pelosi and company, were like, oh, this is uncivilized, how dare you. Now, I could be wrong about this one, honestly, I haven't seen enough from her either way to make a real decision. However, that comment was very suspect, and just this idea that, oh, we're gonna, like, anyone who thinks the whole impeachment process through understands that waiting in line next is Mike Pence, and nobody wants to see Mike Pence become president. So the fact that she's pushing this impeachment thing, I think that it's very suspect. The way that she delivered that line. Now, yes, I know it wasn't at a political event, that she maybe didn't think she was being recorded or something. Maybe she was just caught up in the moment. Like, again, I could be wrong about this one. However, my spidey senses are tingling, and for one thing, there's been another Palestinian American in Congress. It's Justin Amash, who's a Republican. Maybe that's why nobody cares about him. But he was actually the one voice to vote against this bogus Anti-Semitism Awareness Act earlier this year. So I think people should be paying more attention to this guy, because he's clearly got something going on, that, like, a spine that his colleagues do not. And just this idea that, oh, we need to be more aware of anti-Semitism and give them... no, that isn't even it. That's just the name of the bill. And the bill was to give more money to Israel to fight boycott, divestment, and sanctions. Now, as the film The Lobby made very clear, this money is going right back into America to spy on kids on college campuses and smear them and try to prevent them from succeeding in life. I mean, these kids were being set up for some really, like, serious character assassination. Just watch the damn movie. Seriously, if you haven't seen it, it's eye-opening and it's really disturbing. So that law that passed is giving money to Israel to fund the surveillance of American kids on college campuses to ruin their lives. So this guy, Justin Amash, was willing to stand up to that because he has principles. And the rest of Congress wasn't? What? Hello? But no, Rashida Tlaib included, didn't vote against it. So you would think a Palestinian American congresswoman would vote against a bill that provides money to Israel to smash any sort of resistance against their treatment of the Palestinians, but you would be wrong. And yeah, so I don't see a genuine article in Rashida Tlaib there. And there's just, I don't know, I would like to be wrong about her too, because I think it's great that she's taking a delegation to the West Bank. I think that's awesome. I think that if Congress could actually see what was going on there, anybody who still has a flicker of humanity left in their soul would take an objection to giving billions of dollars to Israel to engage in this repression, engage in this violence. I don't know. We'll wait and see, I guess, to see how it ends up. But so that's basically all I have to say on the subject. Um, Stating the obvious is now an anti-Semitic hate crime. Welcome to America. Just an addendum, proving that I was right. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has recently come out with a statement in response to Ilhan Omar's anti-Semitic tweets, basically saying, "Oh, that was a really nice thing you did to apologize, and I think we all learned something here." Basically refusing to stand up for anything. As usual, this woman will not stand up for a single goddamn thing. She might occasionally come out with a statement that we can all agree with, such as, we're eating too much meat, we need to cut down on the amount of pollution in the environment, etc., etc. But then she will not stand by it. This latest, this whole mess with the Green New Deal, I'm not even going to go into that because that's another topic for another time. But you should be standing right by Ilhan Omar's side. Now that is a person with a spine. You might never have encountered it before in your sheltered upbringing in Pelham Bay Park, but that's what a person with a spine looks like. You should be more like her, and less like whoever is paying you to basically ruin the whole concept of democratic socialism for this entire generation. Congratulations, you're doing a great job. I'm sure you deserve those paychecks you get from, I'm not going to say AIPAC because I don't think you're getting paid by AIPAC. However, I'm sure that they make contributions to you and that you signed their little loyalty oath that they make everybody sign. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's an established fact. I think they admit that on their website too. Yeah, so I was right about it. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I don't like being right sometimes, and meanwhile, Rashida Tlaib hasn't said a damn thing. So, unfortunately, as much as I said, I wasn't sure about her, especially. I think I was probably right. So, stand up for your fellow. You're what, like the two Muslim women in Congress? Like, stand up for each other, man. You're friends, right? You're friends, and you're on the same side of political issues. The least you can do is fucking like show some solidarity, maybe. I mean, I find it very funny how like this whole affair has completely decimated the Democrats' notion of standing up for women of color or people of color or Muslims or any sort of minority. This whole identity politics concept has just been shredded. Congratulations, your need to just suck up pathologically to the state of Israel has completely deprived you of a single moral leg to stand on. You are a moral amputee, a moral quadriplegic right now. Yeah, you're going to get 4 more years of Donald Trump because of this. Congratulations. The country I think I can speak for my country now when I say, fuck you guys. You fucked up.